All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. And we've made it 40 days of 4VKM. We're on day 40, episode 41. I hate that it's an odd number like that, but we got the 40 days, right? We're up to the 40 days. We have the 4VKM podcast launching tomorrow, and it's going to be 2/21/2024. And put out a lot of content the last 40 days. Lots of content, lots of hours put in. Probably about 120 hours between recording everything, watching it back, editing it, exporting it, uploading it. It's been like a full-time job the last month. So glad it's over and we get to move on to the next chapter now of 4VKM, which is going to be very good. So the name of this episode, I had to come back out of retirement and do it. It was released on Christmas, 12/25/2023. And it was the War on Christmas 3 and the CM Punk prophecy, is what I like to call it, because for about a year and change, I was saying CM Punk was going to come back to the WWE, at least on Twitter and on X, whereas everybody else in the wrestling media, they were basically saying, no, that's not going to happen, contracts, all this stuff, there's no way, right? Well, when you have the ability to read the tea leaves, as they like to say, generally, what did I talk about yesterday? There's a gut and there's a brain. And usually they're connected, and I like to use them together. And as a result, we get to figure out some really cool shit that other people don't really figure out. So, all right, let's get into it. So we start with JFK. Shout out JFK, President JFK. And he's doing his tree lighting. So why did I want to show this? He's giving a nice little Christmas address here. And as he is, and he's talking about the spirit of the holidays and how important the holidays are, I am showing all these clips throughout history of WWE celebrating the holidays, right? And usually they celebrate the holidays with somebody getting beat up or thrown through a Christmas tree or something along the guards, or a eggnog, two women wrestling in an eggnog bowl, that was very entertaining. So, what else are we showing you? On one of these Christmas episodes, or, they have the whole set for Raw decorated out for Christmas, so it was December of last year. You have the Judgment Day coming out to the ring, and Rhea Ripley, she kicks over one of the Christmas trees, knocks it over, right? Well, what other Christmas tree fell over? It was Biden's White House Christmas tree, right? Remember that? Timber, tree falls over, they had to pick it up. It was such a sad sign of where we were as a country that you can't even keep the Christmas tree standing, right? So, speaking of Biden, it was a couple years ago, but we show you this clip as well, where him and Jill, they visited a little corner in Washington, D.C. to go hang some ornaments on a tree out there. And you know where that tree was located? It was located on the corner of 17th and Q. What are the odds of that, right? So, showing you all of that, and what's one of the lines that JFK uses in this scene? It's like he probably says this word, endeavor, more than any president I've ever heard. I don't think I've ever heard Trump say it, but he says, the guiding star of our endeavors, right? JFK. So, Endeavor. That's the company that merged with WWE earlier in the year. Now this deal is finalized. September it got finalized. And Endeavor is now the majority owner of WWE. Formed a new company, TKO. And actually last night on Raw, we finally had some UFC crossover. They had Michael Chandler, I think. He called out Conor McGregor live on Monday Night Raw. So and the crowd went crazy. They want to see it. We want to see it in WWE, though. We don't want to see it in UFC. See it in UFC, but we want to see Conor in WWE eventually, right? So next, this is about CM Punk, right? So before CM Punk, give you the quick rundown on this. CM Punk left WWE in 2014. His last match was the Royal Rumble. 2014. So he has a falling out with everybody. He walks out, and ultimately he is gone for years and years and years. In 2019, they have this show on Fox Sports 1 FS1, which is called WWE Backstage. And I've shown you some clips of that before. And CM Punk makes his return to WWE via that show. Now, he was hired by Fox. He wasn't actually hired by WWE, but he gets brought in to just talk about the product, be able to talk about anything that he likes. So CM Punk comes in, and he's doing his thing on the talk show. Right now, one of the things I point out is Vince McMahon still follows CM Punk, even though they had this falling out and whatnot. Vince basically follows the same people that he did when he opened his Twitter account, I'm imagining. But President Donald Trump is one of those people that Vince follows. But also, so is CM Punk. So you have CM Punk. He's on this Backstage show, one of his first shows back. He's got Tom Arnold talking shit about him, right? Tom Arnold is tweeting him, talking shit. And CM Punk's addressing it, and he cuts a promo on Tom Arnold, right? He's like, I got Tom Arnold talking shit about me now? Like, what seventh layer of hell did I end up in where I got Tom Arnold, who was married to who? Roseanne Barr, right? Our friend Roseanne Barr. And right around the same time, it was in December, Miami, they had the big Trump rally in Miami. And guess who was there? It was Roseanne Barr. So Roseanne Barr, not only was it just Roseanne, she brought Juan O'Savin with her as well. So you see Juan in the background. And what does Roseanne bring up on stage and talk about at the Trump rally? The Matador jacket. Remember the Matador jacket that Jennifer Mack made? We made the video on it. So she brings that out, and she's showing everybody, she's telling the story about how Trump is the Matador, and he's here to slay the deep state bull. We show you Tito Santana, El Matador in WWE, and then the Los Matadors with the little bull, El Torito. That's the deep state bull, El Torito, the little guy, right? So, he's got this big feud going on with Tom Arnold. And at the same time, this is 2019, he's got a little feud going on with Seth Rollins, who's tweeting at him, talking all this stuff, saying, fight me, CM Punk, right? So he's addressing that tweet. He goes, I got Seth Rollins tweeting at me. Now, if you look at the timestamp for Seth Rollins' tweet, it was at 5:05 a.m., right? So you get your little 5-5 right there, which I thought was interesting, right? So you got Roseanne. Roseanne, she's just killing it. She's like, aren't we all tired of the deep state bullshit? And everybody's like, yeah, right? Now, don't forget Tom Arnold. They broke up. Tom Arnold, and CM Punk calls this out, he had the Roseanne Barr tattoo on his chest that he changed to a tattoo of Stephen King, right? And when I think of Stephen King, I think about that time that Elon wouldn't take his blue check mark away, and he's like paying for his blue check mark, and Stephen King goes crazy, he hates it, and but he's still there. He's still there on X, Stephen King. So maybe you need to pull the Liam Neeson and take yourself out, buddy. But so you have Tom Arnold. And what's Tom Arnold? He went from being friends with Trump also to hating Trump derangement syndrome. Remember, he was on the hunt to find more Hollywood Access tapes, right? It's been unsuccessful to that degree, right? But at the very least, Tom Arnold in WWE Backstage with all that. So what else happens in WWE Backstage? You have, remember, that slip up that Booker T, when they have the hacker character, and the hacker hacks into the show, and Booker T's talking, and he interrupts him, and then as Booker T comes back, what's he say? The first word that comes out of his mouth, he goes, Kennedy, right? So he keeps saying Kennedy. Why? Why is he saying Kennedy? There's no wrestlers called Kennedy at this point. There was Mr. Kennedy back years ago, but he hasn't been in WWE or around it for a very long time now. So Booker T, CM Punk, they're, next head-to-head. And as they're talking about this promo that CM Punk cut on Tom Arnold and Seth Rollins, as CM Punk's ending it, he goes, why don't you find something better to do, Seth? I mean, Tom. And Booker T calls him out. CM Punk hadn't wrestled in years. He left in 2014. This would have been 2019. He comes back. He's doing this skit. And you have, Booker T basically saying, hey, man, that you just said Seth. I think you want to get back in the ring and have a match with Seth. And CM Punk goes, nope, that was a Freudian slip, right? And it's one of my favorite words, right? Because how many Freudian slips Freudian slips do we get when it comes to people mistaking RFK Jr. for JFK Jr.? I mean, it's countless. I love it. It's my favorite thing to look out for. All these people, especially angry liberals who go out and tweet and think, I hate JFK Jr. He's so anti-vax, right? It's just fun to watch, right? So many people. The best one ever was what's his name? The guy that Bill Mitchell, right? Bill Mitchell had this. I will only support JFK Jr. in the presidential election. So, oh, it's great. So anyway, I'll show you a couple Freudian slips regarding JFK Jr. We had Jason Miller. He goes on and he's on Fox News. They're always on Fox News. I don't know if you realize that, right? But he goes on Fox News and he says it. He's saying, we wish there were more JFK Jr. Democrats, right? He's talking about RFK Jr., I think, right? But he says JFK Jr. And then the best one was Trump, right? Remember he's sitting down with Bret Baier, and Bret Baier is asking him about what he thinks about, the election and everything. He goes, you got a guy going up against Biden. He's at 21%, JFK Jr. And Bret Baier's like, Robert, and he goes, he's a great man. He's a friend of mine. JFK Jr., he's a great man. So you have all that. And you have CM Punk say, hey, I was just making a Freudian slip right here. And Booker T made a Freudian slip. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was intentional, right? When he said Kennedy, Kennedy. So it's interesting, to say the least. Now, I take you back to a clip from when I was on the Conspiracy Horsemen. Shout out Ben Hameen and those guys. And I'm saying, look, I didn't start 4VKM to tie Vince back to the Kennedy family, which is true. I didn't. I was just kind of, I thought it was interesting, the name, but I didn't really know how deep the rabbit hole went until I started getting in and researching more, and video after video after video. I learned something new after every video that I made. So that's kind of how it went down. But I'm showing you a tweet that VK had. Remember, before VK left on 11/22, he said, you're going to love Grok. And Grok was the AI that came available on Twitter. So as soon as I had Grok, I asked it, I said, is there any connections between Vince McMahon and the Kennedy family? And that's when it told me. It said, well, their grandfathers or their fathers, or Joseph Kennedy was in the entertainment industry, so he probably crossed paths with Vince's dad or granddad, who were also in the entertainment industry and the promotion industry, and they were up in the same area, the Northeast, right? So it's very, very plausible, to say the least. Now, I go on and say, I'm asking Grok, the last thing that it says in there, in the Grok, breakdown is, and, there might be some interesting connections between Vince's mother and the Kennedys, but we won't get into that. So I thought that was interesting. So I'm like, all right, well, let me go research that some further. And it turned out. So Vince's mother, Vicky Askew, her mother was Victoria Hanner. Victoria Hanner, her mother was Sarah E. Kennedy. So Vince's great-grandmother was a Kennedy. Was it the Kennedys that we know? I can't prove that to you. All I could say is that Vince was a Kennedy, and then they named his middle name Kennedy as a result of that. But his bloodline goes back to a Kennedy. That's proven. That's verifiable. So Vince McMahon is a Kennedy. Don't forget, President Trump, when he was announcing Vince as part of the committee to reopen the economy for sports during COVID, he called him the Great Vince McMahon. And then right after, he says, NASCAR's Lisa Kennedy, right? So, again, he could have put Dana White after Vince. He could have put Adam Silver after Vince. But he specifically puts Lisa Kennedy after Vince McMahon. And if you say the two names back to back, Vince McMahon, Lisa Kennedy. Vince McMahon, Lisa Kennedy. Vince McMahon, Lisa Kennedy. Kind of sounds like Vince McMahon is a Kennedy, all right? So He is his great grandmother, Sarah E. Kennedy, right? So it's very cool. Now, again, my point wasn't to connect starting 4VKM to connect Vince directly to the Kennedy family, but we did show and prove that he was a Kennedy. But the real reason we started 4VKM, I registered the domain when I did, is because AEW was starting up. And AEW was WWE's first legitimate competition since WCW 20 years ago, before he, crushed them and bought the company. So you have AEW owned by the Khans. Now, Shad Khan, he's the owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars. So I always thought this was interesting when this all went down, because at the same time, right after Vince announces the XFL, he's going to do the XFL, he's going to try that again after 20 years, Shad Khan is like, well, I'm going to do professional wrestling. So you have the football guy doing wrestling, and you have the wrestling guy doing football. And they both invested the same amount of money, $100 million each. That's interesting, right? So I found it very fascinating. And I do love how they always use, in the XFL promo, when Vince had it at least, they had a player with a number 17 jersey all the time in the promo. So big fan of that. Big fan of that. So anyway, that's why I created 4VKM, was to do the counter narrative, because what I had noticed is that the entire wrestling media was, they always kind of slant anti-Vince McMahon to begin with, but now they have somebody that they can root for and they can cheer on, and any negative news that they could spin on WWE, they would, and any way they could prop up their competitor, they would, and that's exactly what's been being shown. I mean, even Dave Meltzer was getting paid by AEW, and then he's supposed to report, unbiased. He's not. None of these guys are unbiased journalists, right? That's why the 4VKM podcast is going to be so fun and so great, because as they drop their spin on it, we're going to give them the counter spin, and we're going to show people both sides. I have a bias towards Vince. I'm going to be totally transparent and honest towards that, but I can't help but notice every time they put out a negative article about him, they're leaving out the positive stuff or the other side of the story. So that shit is going to end, which I'm very, very excited for. So going back to AEW, I mentioned CM Punk. CM Punk's around the WWE, but then they cancel that Backstage show, and now he's gone. Is he going to go back into WWE now and be on television again, or what? Or is he going to go to AEW? And ultimately, he ends up going to AEW, and he makes his debut there on 8/20/2021. So 7 years from when he left WWE and wrestled. His last match was at the Royal Rumble. Don't forget that. He returns to professional wrestling. So CM Punk's back. He brings all his fans. He makes AEW hot at the time. AEW gets really hot under this period. And what ends up happening? He wins the AEW World Championship. When does he win the AEW World Championship? He wins it on this guy's birthday, May 29th, 2022. Interesting, right? Now, what is so interesting to me about it, right? Gematria, I've said this in a couple of videos before, CM Punk equals 78, Kennedy equals 78. So it's kind of the same right there, right? So more on that soon, right? Now, I mentioned this when we did the episode, WWE's Fabric of America, that was out, and that came out summer of 2022, August in 2022, August 29th of 2022 to be exact. And the beginning of that video, in the intro, is I'm showing RKO pictures, right? That was Joseph Kennedy's movie studio, and it was also Randy Orton's finishing move. And there's this iconic RKO at the first WrestleMania I was ever at, 27, JFK, that, CM Punk does a springboard and he lands right into an RKO, and the announcer goes, RKO out of nowhere. And that's why I wanted to use that clip. So CM Punk gets KO'd with an RKO, right? What happens 6 days later? AEW pay-per-view. I've talked about this. It's a little thing called Brawl Out, right? So it's their all-out pay-per-view, and it's in Chicago. And CM Punk, I believe, defends or wins back his AEW championship, and then he's doing a press conference backstage. Now, there had been, I was talking about Dave Meltzer earlier. Well, Dave Meltzer is friends with some of the guys that run AEW called the Young Bucks, Matt and Nick Jackson. Want to hear a funny Matt and Nick Jackson story? I want to say it was, I might be wrong on the WrestleMania, but I don't think so. I don't know. It was either WrestleMania 31 or 34. I can't remember. They were working for ROH at the time, and I had booked the same hotel that all the ROH talent was at. And it was like a Marriott Courtyard or something like that. And sure enough, I open up my door one day, and Matt and Nick Jackson are on the other side of the door in the hallway. And I knew who they were, but I'm not like a fanboy like that, right? So I just gave them like the sup and then walked away. But, you know, I'm not going to, it's the Young Bucks, right? They've never even been in WWE. So it's like, I know of them, but they're not like the best thing ever, right? In my opinion. They're not to take anything away from them, but they're just not huge stars, in my opinion, right? So, you know, they're on the other side of the door, and they're about to go into this other wrestler's room, who's, I guess, staying across the hall from me, and his name is Joey Ryan. Another guy that's never been in WWE, and not a big fan of this guy's character. This guy's character and his whole gimmick is taking his opponent's hand and putting it on his crotch, right? And making them hold his, you know, his privates, right? So not the type of wrestling that I like. But anyway, this guy's staying across from me in the hallway, and these guys all go into his room. And this guy, Joey Ryan, I don't remember what he said, but it was totally in Joey Ryan character. And that's kind of my Young Buck story. You know, I always find it fascinating that I just happened to open my door one day and the Young Bucks were outside of it. Maybe they remember that story if they ever see this video. But probably not. I'm sure they've seen a lot of people in hallways at hotels throughout the years, right? So we are talking about the Young Bucks. They are executive vice presidents of AEW. They're also talent. They're also wrestlers, right? Another executive vice president is Kenny Omega. So you have the three of those guys, and the rumor and innuendo is that they've been leaking negative stories about CM Punk to the likes of Dave Meltzer and the other people that they're lapdogs in the wrestling media. So CM Punk's kind of had it, right? One of those guys that they were making stuff up about him for was Colt Cabana, which was a wrestler I talked about in the past. He gets name dropped in CM Punk's promo when he's going after Vince McMahon that time, right? So, he's you have CM Punk doing this press conference with Tony Khan, the owner of AEW, right next to him. And he's basically like, look, anybody's got a problem with me, come find me, let's settle it, let's go, right? Now, Punk had already injured his tricep, I believe, in this match. But, FAFO, right? So Punk gets backstage into his locker room, and these three EVPs knock the door down. They bang the door down. I'm showing Booker T kind of narrating this on his podcast, and we have a funny clip. There's a YouTube channel I recommend. It's kind of funny. I think it's called South Park Wrestling, and it's basically they've just recreated South Park animation, but they show these funny wrestling skits and whatnot. So I take this clip from them, and so we can show you a visualization of the brawl backstage. Ace Steel, who I've talked about in the last episode, he was the first release of WWE in 2022, which again, this led to my theory that I feel like the whole CM Punk thing in AEW is a work to get him back into WWE. They release Ace Steel. He's the first release in 2022. He quickly goes and gets a job at AEW. He trained CM Punk. He was the guy with CM Punk. And then he's a producer backstage now for AEW. So they're backstage, and Punk's got his dog with him too, Larry. And the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, all bust in, and a fight ensues, right? Ace Steel throws a chair at one of the guys, bites Kenny Omega. I mean, it just gets wild, right? What ends up happening? I think Ace Steel gets fired, and then CM Punk, the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, they all get suspended indefinitely. They're gone for months, right? Punk's injured anyway, so he's going to be out for an even longer time. So while he's out on this suspension, what's he do? He goes and he visits. I want to say this was in April of 23. He goes and he visits Triple H at Monday Night Raw. And, he meets up with a couple other people backstage. I believe he meets with The Miz. He apologizes to The Miz for some stuff that they had said about each other in the past. And he's almost like trying to right the ship, right? So I'm like, man, CM Punk, he's going back. He's trying to smooth everything over so he can go back. Now the story goes, Vince McMahon found out that he was there, and Vince McMahon said, get him out. He can't be there, right? And he made him leave, right? But it wasn't until he met with Triple H and was able to say whatever he wanted to say, right? So, here at this point, I'm on Twitter, I'm saying CM Punk's going back. He's going back to WWE. Everybody, no, he's under contract. He can't go back. Nothing like that. He can't go back. There's no way. So then what ends up happening? Tony Khan, doesn't really manage the situation very well with the locker room. You have a lot of the AEW talent like the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega who are very influential in this company. They don't want to do business with CM Punk. They don't want CM Punk around. There's a lot of people in the company that like CM Punk, that enjoyed his company, that he was a mentor to. So what's Tony end up doing? He goes for a second show instead, and he's going to do like a soft roster split. And that second show is going to be on Saturday nights, separate from his Wednesday night show. And he's going to basically keep these people apart because they're on separate shows, so they'll never have to see each other, right? So when is the debut of this first show? It's June 17th. Oh, it's my birthday, right? So you have June 17th, 2023, the first AEW Collision. They're going to have it from Chicago. So once they say that they're going to be having it in Chicago, that's the sign there that CM Punk, he's coming back. Because Chicago is CM Punk territory. And every time CM Punk comes back, it's in Chicago, as you'll see later. So, they have this going on. Now, at the same time, tickets, I think, are on sale for Survivor Series. That's going to be later this year in November. And where's that going to be? Chicago, right? So that's where I'm saying. I'm like, if CM Punk comes back, he's coming back Chicago, Survivor Series, right? But then they debut this new show, and it doesn't look like CM Punk's going to be coming back, right? Because, they're building this whole new second show around him, June 17th. So there's a lot of cool June 17th things that we've talked about. Remember, it was the day Vince stepped down as CEO, June 17th. It was the birthday of the Stone Cold Stunner, June 17th, right? 1996. Little fun fact also, VK, he says his son's birthday was June 17th. Wow, what a cool little sync there. We have the same birthday, huh? So, and now it's the beginning of this new show, and CM Punk is going to return on June 17th, right? So I remember there's this tweet that VK had posted at one time, and there's a lot of debate about when is the actual birth of Christ, right? Most people agree that it probably wasn't December 25th, that, Nimrod was born on December 25th, and it looks like that's like a pagan thing and whatnot. So sorry to offend you if you haven't figured that part out yet about Christmas, but that's kind of why it's called the War on Christmas, right? Because it's like the fake Christmas. But anyway, so VK, so there's these other dates that get established, right? Some people say it was September 11th that he was born. A lot of people believe that. And the first time I had ever heard this, it was VK. He had mentioned in a tweet, he said that Jesus was actually born on June 17th, according to certain scientists, right? So with that being my birthday, I'm like, I've never heard that before. Let me look into that. And sure enough, it was a bunch of astronomers in the UK who were like, yes, the alignment of the stars meant that it was June 17th. It was Jesus was born in the middle of the summer, right? And I guess VK's explanation for that is that the conception date was 9/11, and he was basically saying that's when life begins, and that's how they kind of throw it in our face because they know that's when life begins on September 11th. So was Jesus born on June 17th? I don't know. All I know is that VK's son was, so was I, and AEW Collision and the Stone Cold Stunner were all born on June 17th. So that's my June 17th little spiel. Now, AEW Collision debuts on June 17th in Chicago, and David Zaslav is the executive for Warner Brothers. And CM Punk cuts a promo, and he's like, you know what David Zaslav calls me? He calls me One Bill Phil, right? Because he's the one true genuine buck in a business, or the one true Bill in a business full of counterfeit bucks, right? And he's taking a little shot at the young bucks right there, counterfeit bucks, right? So what's interesting that I thought was Valuetainment. I'm looking up David Zaslav, and I see that he was ranked number 17 on their most influential media personalities list of 2023. So wow, Zaslav, number 17 on the Valuetainment list. Shout out PBD, eh? So, you know, so CM Punk's back now. We're in June. We get back to basically the 1 year anniversary of the time he got suspended a year before, and he's about to go and have a match with Samoa Joe at the biggest show AEW has ever done, called All In at Wembley Stadium. They had Wembley Stadium sold out, allegedly, and you have a fight happen with CM Punk before he's about to go out, and the fight, from all accounts, was pretty brutal. He roughed the guy up. His name was Jack Perry, son of Luke Perry, if you remember him. He's a wrestler now, and he roughs him up pretty bad. And basically, CM Punk gets suspended again. But he doesn't get suspended. He actually gets fired, right? Tony Khan now has to come out in front of their next show, which is in Chicago, right? Like, this is the worst place that you could have to make an announcement like this. And he has to tell all the AEW fans how CM Punk's been fired with cause because of the Backstage incident. Tony said he feared for his life, you know, and as soon as he said that, the fans just give him hell for it. I mean, it's actually a pretty funny clip to see, right? So what do I tweet there? CM Punk, mission accomplished, because now he's out of his contract, right? And now the CM Punk prophecy of him returning at Survivor Series has a much higher likelihood, because he's not in that contract anymore with AEW. Now, the debate was, does he have a 90-day no-compete clause where he can't go show up anywhere else? Nobody really knew that, right? But what's the fake news doing? They are basically all pushing, oh, he's not going to be there, he's not going to be there. Meltzer saying, oh, he's not going to be there. Sean Ross Sapp, loser, saying he's not going to be there. All his sources say he won't be there, right? You know, Adam Pearce, the general manager of Monday Night Raw, he has a saying sometimes where he goes, I need a drink. And if you remember, you probably don't remember, but, you know, in CM Punk's first run with the company, he had, his whole gimmick was he's straight edge, right? So he doesn't smoke, he doesn't drink, he doesn't do drugs. And so I just replied to Adam Pearce, you know, with the CM Punk straight edge, you know, put that drink down type of meme or GIF. And Adam Pearce blocked me, right? Because I was like, oh, sounds like you're referencing CM Punk here with the drinking, right? Adam Pearce, unblock your boy, bro. I'm a huge fan of you, Adam Pearce. You know, and look, I ended up being right. CM Punk came back. So, you know, you don't have to hate on me. I didn't say anything bad to you. Don't be like Sean Ross Sapp. Don't be like Dave Meltzer. Snowflakes that just block everybody they don't like. You know, come on. Unblock me, Pierce. Can you guys please tweet at Adam Pierce, Scrap Daddy AP, I think is his Twitter, and say, please remove the block on Mr. Drew ENT. I would greatly appreciate it if you guys can help me do that there. So, so all those guys blocked me. You know, I get it. Now, what's interesting though is that if you recall, there was many mentions in the Q drops using the phrase CM. Now, everybody's interpreted those as code monkey, right? Because they're usually talking about the boards and board security and setting up a new board and all this other stuff. CM, code monkey, right? So now the stage is set. We have Chicago. We got, CM Punk's out of his contract. The fake news is all reporting he's not going to be there. He's not going to be there. Mr. Drew is saying he's going to be there. And why is he going to be there? Because the numbers line up, the Gematria lines up, the dates line up. And this is how I'm going to tell you how. So the date of Survivor Series, November 25th, 2023. Well, that's JFK Jr.'s birthday, right? Remember, Kennedy equals 78, CM Punk equals 78. So you can't beat it, right? I mean, boom, it's all lined up. I even tweeted at Gematria Club, and I said, who likes to do a lot of Gematria with sports and what, I said, hey, Gematria Club, is CM Punk going to come back today? I think he is, because 78, and it's Junior's birthday. I don't know. Let's see, right? But I'll take it a layer deeper. There's a Q drop, 11/25/2019. I'll read the whole thing. It's new board created, pending approval, CM. Project D comms. Q. Date, 11/25/2019. So you have a Q drop on the same date, 11/25. This would make it a 4-year delta with CM in it on the same date, right? What ends up happening? CM Punk returns on that date. 4-year delta, CM. Pending approval, CM, right? 11/25/19. 11/25/23, CM Punk back in WWE. So you couldn't have wrote that better, could you have? Right? So the internet goes crazy. Everybody's going crazy for CM Punk now. It was the most watched WWE clip on social media of all time. 71 million social views they advertised it as. They made graphics, 71 million, right? Well, think mirror. You got a 17 there, right? Now, that would hold up for about 2 months until The Rock came back on January 1st. And guess how many views they got from The Rock? They got 171 million. He smashed the record. And there you have 17 backwards and forward, right? 171, 17, 17. It's the number the YouTube channel is stuck at for subscribers for the last 2 months. 171, right? What are the odds of that? 17.1 at least, right? Some people mentioned that in the comments the other day. It's true. We've been stuck there. I watch it every day. I see 2 people subscribe, 2 people unsubscribe. 2 people subscribe, 2 people unsubscribe. Maybe the content sucks and I'm unsubscribing people, or maybe there's something weird that's keeping it there. I don't know, but it's weird. We've been stuck at 17,000 for a while, and now we're stuck at 17.1. And if you go to The Rock, I believe The Rock is at 17.1 million followers on Twitter right now. So, or X. So there's that 171 again. So, CM Punk, he's making his big return. And he comes out to Cult of Personality by Living Color. And we've talked about this in the Bloodline episode, right? So what happens in Cult of Personality? You have CM Punk coming out to that. And, like Mussolini and Kennedy. So from there, I show you the Bloodline clips with our boy Ali Velshi, who made the nice diagram and everything like that. And he starts off talking about how General Patton was the grandson of Abraham Lincoln, and Mussolini was his brother, and then Trump was the son of General Patton, and as a result of that, Trump is cousins with JFK Jr., whose birthday it was on this day that CM Punk came back, right? So I also, one of the other things that he mentions is now I understand why President Trump had gone so hard and accused Ted Cruz of murdering JFK because he was avenging the death of his uncle, is what Ali Velshi says, right? So at this point, there's this book that was recommended called 4 Days, 4 Dark Days. And I highly recommend if you can get a copy of it. It's basically really breaks down from that point of view. We get it with revisionist history, right? So, if you were born in the 70s, 80s, 90s, after the facts, right, you're getting told a different story of what happened. But if you read that book that was published, the year after the Kennedy assassination, you kind of realize, wow, this is messed up. They closed the whole investigation like before Kennedy's funeral even happened, right? Dallas PD was like, oh yeah, no, it was Oswald, and Oswald's dead now, so case closed. And you're like, what? This is nuts. So 4 Days, I got my copy, and it was one of the original, published in 1950 something, right? And there's a note in there, and I don't remember the name of the note, what the note exactly said, but it was signed Uncle Don, which I thought was super fun, right? Uncle Don, Trump's uncle was JFK, allegedly, according to Ali Velshi. Not me. According to Ali Velshi, he said that. So I thought it was very, very interesting. I thought that would be a good spot to show you guys that book right there. So what else from the CM Punk return? The video that they put out on YouTube of his return, the timestamp, 2:21, 2 minutes, 21 seconds. What's that? That's the date 4VKM started, 2:21:20. Why did we pick that date? Because it was the 40th anniversary of 2/21/80 when Vince McMahon founded the WWE, right? Which was the 109, PT 109 anniversary of when the U.S. corporation was founded on 2/21/1871 via the Organic Act of District of Columbia, whatever the hell it is, of 1871. And the 4VKM podcast, 2/21/2024. But we hadn't figured that out yet at this point. So you have another 2/21 right there for you. It's in Chicago, right? And there's a part where there's this fan that grabs CM Punk by the arm or by the neck, and he's got his arm around him, and he's just yelling, "Chicago, Chicago, Chicago." Well, what else is going on in Chicago this year? You have the Democrat National Convention going on in Chicago. And what's everybody saying? Everybody's saying there's no way Joe Biden's going to make it and run for president the second time around. But, word on the street is, well, we'll see. We'll find out. Maybe he's stuck. Maybe he has to run. And hopefully he loses in the election of a lifetime. But what are the rumors? Who do they think is going to be swapped out? Michelle Obama, maybe? Where's she from? Chicago. So it's kind of funny that the convention is in Chicago. And at the same time, you have all those Rock haters saying, oh, look, The Rock, they're getting him ready to pop in and replace Biden potentially, right? I don't think that's going to happen. But interesting enough, The Rock was meeting with Pentagon officials. You remember seeing that story a little while ago? The Rock, he went to the Pentagon. He had meetings with them at the Pentagon. That's weird. And then he also had meetings at the U.S. Senate House chamber. Why is The Rock doing this stuff? I don't know. If you go look at his Grand Marshal speech that he did at Daytona 500 yesterday, it's very presidential. He's talking about the country. He's got the troops behind him, red berets. So it's interesting what's going on with The Rock, to say the least. Rock goes on Joe Rogan finally, and he's basically, talking about America First policies. He's like, hey, look, we gotta put our country first. Wow, kind of sounds like Trump a little bit. Interesting. Interesting for a guy that endorsed Biden a couple years ago, right? So going back to CM Punk, a big theme of the War on Christmases in the past has been tribute to the troops, right? And it's no different here. CM Punk makes one of his first appearances back on WWE at Tribute to the Troops, which is a SmackDown event that they're having. And he has an interesting line that he uses there. He goes, do you guys want spicy CM Punk back, right? Which I found hilarious, right? Who always used that word? VK would always say spicy margarita. Ooh, that's spicy, right? So you get all that. And then his next stop from there is he goes to see HBK Shawn Michaels, which don't forget, B Skulls, he had the QR code right in front of right after they showed HBK. But CM Punk goes to NXT to go talk with HBK and say, maybe I'll go to NXT, as my destination there. So he goes to NXT, and he's having a little conversation there, and I show a tweet that CM Punk had tweeted back on April 29th, 2021. This was after he returned to that backstage, or he's on that backstage show, and Booker T, or I don't know, getting ahead of myself. They have CM Punk. They ask him, they say, what do you think the best thing going on in wrestling right now is? And he goes, that QAnon stable in NXT. And he's probably being sarcastic right there, but at the time there was that wrestler who was a referee, Drake Wirtz, that everybody associated with QAnon and all this other stuff. Karrion Kross, remember I told you they called him QAnon Cross, the internet wrestling community snowflakes. So they were kind of branding a lot of people who were anti-human trafficking or anti-deep state, if you will. They were branding them QAnon, right? So here's CM Punk saying, the best thing going on in wrestling right now, QAnon in NXT. And all these years later, he returns on a Q Delta CM, right, on JFK Jr.'s birthday, and then he's on NXT talking about NXT, right? So I always thought that was fun. Now, going back to Booker T, right? So Booker T, while CM Punk had left, Booker T, he's a company guy. So he's like, hey, I don't think CM Punk will ever come back. He burned that bridge. I don't think there's ever a path for him to return. But Booker T works at NXT, so they see each other there. And he goes up to CM Punk. He goes, CM Punk, what's up, man? And CM Punk goes, hey, what's up, you flip-flopper? Right, because now Booker T's praising CM Punk, right? I mean, hey, they're all on the same team now, right? Another guy that was a flip-flopper was Eric Bischoff. Eric Bischoff, when CM Punk went to AEW, he said it was going to be one of the biggest financial flops in the history of pro wrestling. And now he's saying CM Punk going to the WWE is going to be one of the greatest financial successes in pro wrestling history. He's like, I can't believe I said that, right? So you have CM Punk breaking people's minds here, to say the least. And you know who else got broken up? Jim Cornette, the guy that said F you, Andrew, at 10:07 in February 2022 or something like that. He goes, he always recommends this lawyer on his podcast, Stephen P. New, who's not a Trump guy, not a Trump fan at all. But they have him doing that. He'd always do the advertisements, right? And it just turns out that Stephen P. New represented Ace Steel and CM Punk in this whole lawsuit deal with AEW and the whole fight that happened and all this other stuff. So the internet finds out about this, and for whatever reason now, they just associate Cornette, Punk, this lawyer, as a bunch of right-wingers. And if you know anything about Jim Cornette, furthest thing from a right-winger, right? He's liberal, anti-Trump to the T. He hates Trump, but he loves Vince. He still sort of loves Vince, but he hates Trump, right? There's a lot of people like that. But, now Cornette's on defense. He has to explain to people, I'm not a right-winger. I'm not a right-winger, right? So, it's just funny for me to watch, to see how, the internet kind of turns on people like that. And they have really no idea what's really going on. So, Cornette goes, you think Punk changed his principles? Punk's pretty liberal too. He's very supportive of the trans movement, LGBT, all that stuff. He's not a Trump fan, I would imagine. So is he a right winger now? That's what the internet's saying, but I don't think so. I think he's still just regular CM Punk. Now, remember, One Bill Phil and David Zasloff. David Zasloff, he's the CEO of Warner Brothers Discovery, which is the home of the AEW programming, and WWE's partnership with USA Network for Monday Night Raw is coming up. So they're negotiating, right? And they start negotiating with Warner Brothers Discovery, right? So now AEW is getting a little nervous. Oh my God, are they going to go to WWE now and kind of leave us high and dry? that's kind of what the working theory is. Now, that doesn't end up happening because WWE ultimately signs the huge deal with Netflix, $5 billion for 10 years to put Monday Night Raw on Netflix starting in January 2025. So AEW is safe with Warner Brothers for now. But, it was a close call, to say the least. Who knows how close it actually got? But speaking of AEW, and we close it on this note, it's a tweet that I have where I say, see, even AEW knows that JFK is still alive because they have a character called Toni Storm, and she's doing this Marilyn Monroe gimmick, right? So all her scenes are in black and white, and she's just acting like Marilyn Monroe. And they're interviewing her, and she goes, oh, I have such a headache. It was so long night. We went to the compound. JFK was there. And then she goes, oh, one of the Kennedys. And then scene ends, right? So I always thought that was funny. Oh, here you have a wrestler now on television, not WWE, but the other company, saying, JFK was there. Oh, no, it wasn't JFK. One of the Kennedys, right? Almost like those Freudian slips that we were talking about earlier. So that's it. That's the last episode of 4VKM. Maybe I'll come out with more in the future, but I honestly feel like my job is done. Now I have to shift gears and go towards a podcast, more news-oriented, more wrestling news. Got to hold these journalists in the wrestling media accountable, especially during the trial of Vince McMahon, if that happens. So we got to be our head on a swivel, right? We got to move on to bigger and better things. So I thank you guys all for joining me in this last 40 days. I thank everybody that's tuned in, shared 4VKM for the last 4 years. It's not goodbye or over. We're just starting a new chapter now. And we're going to go from there. But enjoy this episode. The link is in the description. Don't forget, tomorrow, the 4VKM podcast is going to launch. That's probably going to be a weekly thing that we do. So looking forward to that. And 4VKM.com, we're about to give it a whole revamp. So we'll have these episodes, these 40 days of 4VKM, next to the episodes that they are with. So each episode will have its own page, and then you'll kind of be able to see everything all in one shot. So hope it helps. I hope these videos have helped you guys understand. A lot of people have told me, the videos are great, but I just don't understand them. So that's why I did these videos. Hopefully you guys understand a little bit better now, understand a little bit about me now, why I created them, what I was thinking when I created them, and we'll go on in this next beautiful chapter. So, as always, ladies and gentlemen, enjoy the show, and we're signing off. 40 days of 4VKM. Done.